With the arrest of Tyler James Robinson, the suspect in the killing of Charlie Kirk, we just got our hands on brand new court paperwork. We are talking potential charges. We are talking bail. We are talking now a new detailed timeline of events, and we're going to break it down for you in real time. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, so we're doing something very different here on Sidebar. We are breaking down this legal paperwork we just got our hands on in real time. No prep. I'm literally looking at this right now. This is new paperwork that was just filed in connection with the arrest of Tyler James Robinson, the 22-year-old who is suspected of killing Charlie Kirk. Now, what do I have in my hands on? I have an affidavit of probable cause. I have an order from a judge denying him bail, and then a public safety assessment report. I'm going to break all of this down in real time. He hasn't been officially charged yet, but this is what he has been booked on. I want to bring on trial attorney Rich Schoenstein, who's going to break this down with me in real time. So we're both looking at this. Rich, good to see you. By the way, great background. Is that real or is that AI? I mean, it looks like a really
no. This is my real brother's real house in Columbus, Ohio.
It looks good. Looks good. Okay, so what I want to do first is go into this affidavit of probable cause, which led to his arrest. He is charged, and we'll break down these charges. He is going to be charged, or at least he's been booked right now, on aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, obstruction of justice, capital first-degree felony conduct. Before we go any further, Rich, so basically, this is what he could be charged with. This is what prosecutors could be seeking. It could be modified in some way. But at this point, this seems to fall in line with what the allegations are.
Right. I mean, basically, the charges here are murder, illegal discharge of a firearm in public where he did it, and obstruction of justice, which I think means flight. And as you say, there are other possible crimes that might or might not be added later.
And so let me read through this whole probable cause statement. And it says, I believe there is probable cause to charge the defendant with these charges. And I believe this is from an arresting officer, although I'll see at the end. Brian Davis, officer's name. This is in the county of Utah, state of Utah. Okay. I believe there is probable cause to charge the defendant with these charges because the following information was obtained by your affiant from police officers, multiple video recordings posted on social media websites, Utah Valley University campus surveillance cameras, and those who witnessed the incident. On September 10th, 2025, Charles James Kirk was at the Utah Valley University UVU campus in Orem, Utah for a political event. Mr. Kirk is a conservative political activist who was scheduled to speak in an event in the courtyard area on the UVU campus. The courtyard area is to the west of the Low C Center building. According to video recordings, Charles was wearing a white t-shirt and dark pants, sitting under a white canopy in a courtyard of the campus facing to the east. The event was attended by hundreds of individuals. Charles was surrounded by people with multiple individuals to his left, right, and rear and front of the canopy. Behind the canopy was a walkway used for access to various parts of the university. Charles was holding a microphone and speaking to a crowd. While speaking into the microphone, a loud gunshot was heard at approximately 12:23 hours, and Charles appeared to have been hit in the neck. Now, that's interesting because I kind of did a separate sidebar on this about there was speculation whether or not he was hit in the chest and it ricocheted into his neck, but here he says it's been hit in the neck. Blood was seen coming out of the left side of his neck as he fell over to his left. Charles was transported to Panagos Regional Hospital in Orem. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Charles was pronounced deceased at the hospital. Investigators reviewed the Utah Valley University surveillance cameras. While reviewing the surveillance cameras, investigators observed an individual on the rooftop of the Low C Center building on the UVU campus at the time of the shooting. Hereafter, the unidentified individual will be referred to as suspect. Based on surveillance camera footage, suspect appears to be a white male with dark-colored hair, wearing a dark-colored hat, sunglasses, a long-sleeved black shirt with a picture of an American flag and an eagle printed on the shirt, dark-colored jeans, and white-gray shoes with white-colored shoelaces. The shoes appear to be consistent with Chuck Taylor Converse-style shoes. We've been following this story from the beginning. And you know, one of the reasons that we can do this to really dive into these cases and stories is because of the amazing support that we get from our sponsors like Upside. Now, Upside is great. It is a free app that gets cash back when you buy daily essentials. So I pump my gas, I can use Upside. I go out to lunch, I can use Upside. Get something at a convenience store, I can use Upside. And why not get cash back when I do all these things, right? Yes, this is real cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you transfer right into your bank account. So once you have the free Upside app, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You pay as usual using a debit or credit card. You follow the steps on the app, you get paid. So to find out how much you can earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on screen. And make sure to use our promo code Sidebar because you'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Suspect is also carrying a dark-colored backpack on his back. Suspect walks with a distinctive gait. Prior to the shooting, suspect appears to walk with a stiff right leg and a relatively slow pace. Suspect's ability to bend his right leg appears to be restricted. Investigators were able to track suspect's movements on the UVU campus starting at approximately 11:50 hours on September 10, 2025. At approximately 11:50 hours, a UVU surveillance camera first captured suspect walking across a grassy area north of Campus Drive at approximately 800 West. By the way, we knew that there were surveillance footage, but now we're really getting this in depth. A suspect walked south through the parking lot and approached a pedestrian tunnel that runs underneath Campus Drive. Before entering the tunnel, suspect paused at the top of the stairs and pulled out what appeared to be a cell phone from his right pocket using his right hand at approximately 11:53 hours. Suspect eventually put what appeared to be a cell phone back in his right pants pocket using his right hand. Surveillance captured suspect making his way toward the Losi Center. At approximately 12:02 hours, suspect was recorded walking on the north side of the Losi Center building, walking with the same gait as observed earlier. Suspect entered the Losi Center building through a set of doors on the southeast corner of the Losi Center building at approximately 12:15 hours. Yeah, let me just change it here. Suspect was observed walking up to the stairs that led to the common area adjacent to the Losi Center building. Suspect walked to a short concrete wall that separates the common area from the rooftop of the Losi Center building. At approximately 12:17 hours, suspect climbed over the short wall and appeared to crouch down on the north side of the wall on the rooftop. At approximately 12:22 hours, suspect stood up and started running across the rooftop of the Losi Center building. The notable limp from previous surveillance was absent. Suspect ran to the west side of the rooftop and appeared to scoot along the rooftop area as he got closer to the edge of the rooftop. At approximately 12:22 hours, suspect laid down in a position consistent with a prone shooting position near the edge of the rooftop and appeared to be facing west in the direction of the courtyard area. The rooftop of the Losi Center building overlooks the courtyard area where the event featuring Charlie Kirk was taking place. The Losi Center building is east of the courtyard area. At approximately 12:23 hours, Charlie Kirk was shot. At approximately 12:23 hours, surveillance shows that suspect stood up suddenly from the edge of the rooftop and sprinted north on the rooftop of the Losi Center building. Suspect ran to the northeast corner of the building and approached the edge of the rooftop. Suspect placed a dark-colored item on the rooftop and proceeded to lower himself off the rooftop. Suspect dropped off the rooftop onto the grass below. Suspect ran north near the parking lot to the east of the Losi Center. At approximately 12:24 hours, suspect ran north across the Campus Drive Road. Suspect appeared to be carrying an item whose identity is not clear from the surveillance, so whether or not it was the weapon. The area to the north of Campus Drive Road where suspect crossed over consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulge OWO, what's this?" Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, catch," an up arrow symbol, right arrow symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." Before we go any further, so Rich, this is quite consistent with not only what we heard from the press conference earlier today, but it is consistent with video footage that is circulated on social media. What is standing out to you about this so far?
Well, I've seen this video footage, as you say, it's been making the rounds, and he walks with a stiff gait, presumably because he has a rifle down his pants. He gets on top of the building, he takes the rifle out of his pants, and now he's able to walk more freely, and he crouches down and fires. And there are these casings. I'm not well versed enough to know what exactly those casings mean, what they're references to. I see that I've seen reports that they might have some connection to video games, but I don't know. But obviously, they're of interest to the investigators. They have a lot of footage. And, we live in a world where if you're out walking around, you're on a campus, you're in a neighborhood, you're on film somewhere. You're on video somewhere. You can't go anywhere. And they've pieced all of that together to show this suspect getting on top of the building and apparently firing a rifle.
And the fact that so much of this is documented, how many times do we cover cases where there is no surveillance footage, let alone of the attack? We all saw the shooting. I mean, we all saw it, unfortunately. But to apparently track the shooter's movements, they talked about it in a press conference yesterday, but to actually have it detailed, that is, and we know that the footage was, we know that the image of this person of interest, this suspect, was released yesterday. That is very important for prosecutors.
Yeah. Well, and so listen, this is a very high profile, very horrible crime. This is an all hands on deck situation. They went door to door to get any possible video they can. We've seen cases where they investigate too late and the video is lost. So here they got it right away. They were there the day of, the day after, going around the neighborhood, pulling together whatever video glimpses they could that might shed some light on this situation. And it paid off. They got pictures, they got video.
And they also they say investigators also discovered a shoe impression on the northeast corner rooftop edge of the Losi Center building. The shoe impression was located in the vicinity where suspect climbed down from the rooftop. The shoe impression is consistent with the shoe sole characteristics of a Converse Chuck Taylor shoe. They also talked yesterday about forearm impressions, palm prints. I believe that has been sent out for testing as well. They're probably looking to see if it matches up to Robinson. One thing to note here, and I was talking about this with Ellie Honig yesterday, this is before there was an arrest, legal liability. One of the things you have to wonder is whether or not the university, and you are a civil trial attorney, whether the university faces any liability here. In the sidebar I did yesterday, there were concerns, there were questions of reports about maybe a lax in security. Were the tickets being checked? Was there a lack of actual, security detectors? This appeared to be on the outside, though, right? So on the rooftop. Does the school face any liability here, you think?
Well, potentially. This is going to be heavily scrutinized. Every facet of this is going to be heavily scrutinized to determine if anybody else is responsible, anybody else is involved, and anybody else is potentially at fault. From should he have been noticed getting to campus, getting up on top of a building? Should somebody have seen that? Was there adequate security for an event that not only had a prominent speaker, but had hundreds of students and other people in attendance? Was there adequate security? I don't know the answers to any of those questions, but those questions are going to be asked.
And one of the things we talked about yesterday was not only a potential wrongful death or negligence lawsuit filed potentially by Charlie Kirk's family, but people around there who had to witness this very traumatic event. This is when we always talk about infliction of emotional distress. I want to move on to that, though. I want to go back to this. So it says, on the evening of September 11th, 2025, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at UVU. Again, very consistent with what we heard from the press conference today. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with the surveillance images. Wow, Rich, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting and sort of, if it's true, surprising that he didn't change his clothes more quickly.
And then it says investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, 2025. And in conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed the roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler, with an emoji icon, Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages, I'm changing here, the content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact. Tyler stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mention that he had changed outfits. Based on the evidence detailed in this statement, I believe there is probable cause that Tyler Robinson committed the crimes of aggravated murder by shooting Charlie Kirk in a circumstance that put many around him at grave risk of death, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice for moving and hiding the rifle believed to have been used in the shooting. Okay, first thing I want to go through here, Rich, now you see why he's being charged with aggravated murder. There's an enhancement statute that's listed. They're basically saying that the reason that you can get this as, I believe, a capital offense, right, the highest offense in Utah, would be this was amounted to a danger to others in that crowd, even though there was only one shot fired at Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, I think that is why that's in there. And also it goes to the issue of bail. There might be other ways to enhance this in terms of the capital nature of the crime. I'd have to look at the particular statute at issue, but the fact that it seems to have been politically motivated might be pertinent as well. But yes, firing essentially into a crowded event, very dangerous,
One of
and
the things
probably gets you enhanced.
And one of the things I talked about with Ellie yesterday was the idea of maybe potentially a terrorism quite charge. What was the purpose
Right.
of this? Was it to
That
silence
that
other people? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I said political. If the facts are that the purpose of this was because of what Charlie Kirk had to say and an effort to silence people of that same viewpoint, then it could be viewed as a form of terrorism.
And this is similar to Mangione. One of the things, the way prosecutors have tried to enhance that charge is, even though he's accused of just shooting and killing Brian Thompson, it was an inherently dangerous activity that presented a risk to others. You know, there was the nearby bystander. This was in the middle of a public street. So this is what it seems to be consistent.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about how this is similar to Mangione, and
Yep.
I've been thinking about all of the people who support Mangione because they didn't like the person he allegedly shot. And I've been thinking that this is where that line of thinking gets you. It gets more people killed.
And are you also thinking about potentially jury nullification? If this advances towards formal charges and this advances towards a jury trial, whether or not it will be difficult to get a jury because of, unfortunately, I mean, just look at what we're seeing online right now about people kind of, I don't know what the word is, minimizing the idea that a human being was shot in cold blood.
Yeah, there's some of that online, but my thinking is you have a lot better chance of getting jury nullification where the victim was the CEO of an insurance company than
Sure.
where the victim was a young, famous advocate, even though there are a lot of people who didn't like his advocacy. I find it hard to believe you would get a jury nullification in that case. I mean, I hope very much you don't, of course.
And when we talk about that, is basically a jury decides the case not based on the facts of the evidence, but their own personal opinions, their emotions.
Yeah.
And it does become a question of jury selection, too, about how you get a fair and impartial jury. We are going a little down the road here because one of the things this amplifies it, too, and there's a couple more documents I want to get to, but it amplifies people stepped up, right? They reported this to police. You have an alleged confession. Not only are you talking about particularly important witnesses during this potential legal process, this trial, but if it wasn't for them, would he still potentially be on the loose, assuming he did this?
So we don't know. We don't know if the law enforcement effort would have honed in on him because they did a video footage. They had some impressions. They might have over time been able to find him. But yes, a family member, and it sounds like there's a roommate who was helpful in the investigation. That, at a minimum, has allowed this to happen a lot quicker than it might have otherwise happened.
So we have a couple more documents here. One is an order that has been signed by Judge Sean R. Howell. It is an order to hold without bail. Based on the affirmation of Brian Davis, again, the arresting officer who I mentioned before, the undersigned magistrate finds that probable cause existed for the arrest without a warrant of Tyler James Robinson. The current offense is a capital felony, and the court finds substantial evidence to support the charge. Therefore, the court orders that Tyler James Robinson is to be held without bail. And just to couple that, there is a public safety assessment report. Kind of looks like this, okay? And it talks about how the charge of aggravated murder qualifies for what they say is PRL 5 in red. You go down, PRL 5 says, if statutory requirements are met, hold without bail. If released, maximum conditions recommended and or monetary bail. So they believe that this is serious enough that he should be held without bail.
Right. And I reviewed that assessment, and he has no priors, according to that, no prior convictions, criminal or misdemeanor. So really, there's nothing else that would have compelled holding him without bail, except the seriousness of the crime. And if you're going to be accused of shooting somebody in a crowd in the fashion that happened here, you're going to get held without bail. There's no way he would have gotten bail.
Yeah, you're right. It says risk factors: age of current arrest 22, current violent offense, yes, current violent offense and 20 years old or younger, no, pending charge at the time of the offense, no, prior misdemeanor conviction, no, prior felony conviction, no, prior conviction, no, prior violent offense, 0, prior failure to appear in past 2 years, 0, prior failure to appear older than 2 years, no. Prior sentence to incarceration, no. You know, one of the things that's interesting about this is he is not the first criminal suspect to be charged with the most serious offense that we have on the books, right? And this is his first apparent crime. Isn't that always shocking to you? You know, we talk about it's not always, a graduation to murder or somebody who has a criminal history. Sometimes when people commit a crime, it's the worst one yet.
It happens too often to be shocking to me anymore. There is no dependable way to know who's going to commit a crime like this. You can't base it on the number of times they've been in trouble with the law or their socioeconomic background or any of the specific traits or their race or their religion. There's nothing that would really tell you somebody would do something so heinous and so out of the norm of human behavior as this kind of crime.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Before we wrap things up, were you expecting an arrest this soon? I mean, it was very interesting when the press conference happened yesterday. I was surprised they had that much information about the suspected shooter, right? They talked about the timeline, they talked about the surveillance footage, the palm prints, and then, there was some misinformation or confusing information about who was being apprehended and when, but I think it was a little over 30 hours that they were able to make an arrest.
I didn't know what to expect. And I'll tell you this, Jesse, this is the first public comments I've made about this situation. I haven't posted about it on media. I haven't been on YouTube or anywhere else about it, partly because I didn't feel like I had enough information to know what was happening. And I saw a lot of people speculating on who must have done this or why they must have done it or what type of person it must have been. And I found that to be absolutely outrageous. And I still don't have enough information to know for sure if this is the right person or why this crime was committed. But we do have a lot more information. So I had no expectation of when this person would be caught because I didn't know if it was somebody local. I didn't know if it was somebody foreign. I didn't know who it was. And I hope they found the right person.
There's still a lot of questions about this, the timing of it, when he was shot, how he was shot, this suspect. So we're in the beginning stages of this. And again, we might be breaking down things in real time just like this because it just came out. Rich Schoenstein, thank you so much for taking the time. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jesse.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll see you next time.